Hi students, this is grade 11 science subject. This is the third class. We already studied what is digestion and the structure of the digestion systems. Then you know there are three processes occur in the digesting systems. What are they? First, you know, when we eat the food, it is going to digest, right? So we have to take the food, and the second one it's going to digest, third one it's going to absorb. So according to that, we already studied the digestional system, right? Here today we are going to study about large intestine. Large intestines little bit different from the small intestine, because most of the digestional activities happen or occur in the small intestine, especially the initial part of the small intestine, that is C shape, we call duodenum. The initial part of the small intestine having lot of enzymes and some substances, especially bile, and pancreas gland also secreting enzymes to the duodenum. Therefore, what is we expecting, the all kind of digestions occur in the initial part of the small intestine. After that, the absorption, we already studied the length of the small intestine, that is about 7 meter, in feet 25 feet. So the about small intestines can absorb most part of the digestional product. Examples: end product of protein, amino acids, it can absorb in the small intestine, and minerals, vitamins, you know, end part of the lipids, that is called lipidic acid and glycerol. The end product of lipids, that is glycerol and lipidic acid or fatty acid. So it can absorb by the small intestine. After the absorption, the remain part of the food, that means remain part of that chyme, right, the food substances which are moving through the small intestine to enter the large intestine. Actually, the large intestines, the main functions, it can absorb water, because into the small intestine there are liquid formation of food is available, because when we eat food, it is going to mix with the saliva and enzymes. Those are going to change as the state changes as liquid formation, semi-liquid formation, but it should be converted as solid formation, because our body needs more water. We can't lose water, because without sufficient water, our body is going to, the metabolic activity is going to affect. Therefore, the last part of the large intestine, especially rectum, we will study here, that is going to absorb water. Therefore, the liquid formation of that remain food is going to convert as solid formation, right? Here we are going to study the processes in large intestine. Now you can see the screen, processes in large intestine. we should know what is large intestine. Therefore, I would like to draw the part of that. You know that here the what is called stomach, and we will study the large intestine. After the large intestine, here the rectum, here appendix. So the small intestine about 7 meter going to finish in this caecum. We will, it's called caecum, this part. Then appendix. So our target on large intestine, right? That is large intestine. Large intestine, right? This is called rectum. The whole can call anus. Here now you may understand what is the large intestine, right? What is large intestine and its functions. They have mentioned here length of the large intestine is about 1.5 meter. It starts with caecum. I already said the caecum, right? The initial part of this, initial part of that appendix area here, this is called caecum, right? So the large intestine is going on and the rectum will come here, right? The dilated part of the large intestine is rectum. The dilated part means it's going to approach the end part. This is rectum. The opening of it is the anus, right? This is called anus. So here this is called anus. The materials entering in the large intestine, contain very small amount of nutrition. Why? Initially about 7 meter small intestine, it's traveled that about 7 meter small intestine, right? Initially it's traveled through the 7 meter small intestine. So that time what happened, most part of the digestional substances which are going to absorbed by the small intestine. But here when you compare with small intestine, the large intestine contain very small amount of what is food or nutrition, very small amount of nutrition. Then very small amount of nutrition. Mainly it's contain undigested cellulose and water. Why? We already studied the cellulose polysaccharide, right? That cellulose, that is polysaccharide, it is not digest in the human body, human digestion system. Therefore, the materials, the remain part of that materials, the food materials or undigestional materials, those are there. Between there, we have find out the cellulose particles. If there are any cellulose particles, right, this is cellulose. Cellulose particles, it is helped to remove the materials from the digestional system. The small blind ended tubular structure start at the end of the caecum, right? End of the caecum mean that we already studied the small intestines which are connected with large intestine, right, which are connected with large intestine. The caecum, this part I already said, that caecum. So they said the small blind ended tubular, that means they mentioned the blind one here, finish, right, blind tubular structure start at the end of the caecum. It is known as, right, in the this here the tubular is here, known as appendix. Small blind ended tubular structure start at end of the caecum, right. Now you can understand what I am telling you. Say example, we studied that after the digestion of small intestine, in the small intestine, right, here a tubular structure that's called appendix, right. Our target is large intestine. We are going to study about large intestine. So they said this is appendix, where the small blind, right, small blind ended tubular structure start at the end of the caecum. It is known as appendix. What is appendix? That is here, this is appendix, right, this is appendix. The caecum, part of caecum is here. This is blind, they said blind ended. It is known as appendix. It is the very small humans, in it may be infected and become swollen. This disease is known as appendicitis. What is appendicitis? Sometime here in this part, this appendici here, sometime when the moving of food through this, possible to have some pathogens, bacteria in this area. Therefore what happened? That is going to becoming enlarged through the infected. So sometime the cause of death possible, the swelling of this appendix. So the disease called appendicite, right. This disease is known as appendicite. Okay, we can move to the next one. The main function of large intestine is to absorb water. We already studied, is to absorb water from matter received from the ileum, therefore making it into semi-solid. The matter entered into large intestine is known as fecal matter. Fecal matter is yellow in color due to the bile pigments in it. Undigested food, microorganism, epithelial cells and mucose and present in fecal matter. They said the large intestine is known as fecal, the matter entered into the large intestine is known as fecal matter, right. We studied what is when enter the, we will, here we can, wait, right. Here, when from the small intestine the food is enter here, this is fecal matter. In this subject we can say fecal matters. Here fecal matters are can move through the large intestine. It can move through the large intestine. But mainly what function occur in this large intestine? Absorb water. The large intestine absorb water. It's going to absorb water because most of the digestional part already absorbed by the small intestine. But mainly here absorb water. Small amount of minerals possible can absorb, but anyway the target is our body balance, water balance can maintain by the help of this function, right. Therefore the fecal matters, the state changes occur. What is the liquid formation? Liquid form of the fecal matter is going to absorb, going to change as solid form, especially in this area, that you know the especially the rectum, right. This rectum, it can absorb more water. So here the fecal matters can be stay here. The fecal matters, it is moving through this and can be stay here. Therefore the most part of the water can absorb here. If you miss to defecation, if you miss to excrete remove the fecal matters in time, if you miss to remove the fecal matters in time, if you not remove the fecal matters in time, what happened? The matters which can changes solid formation, very thick solid formation. Why? In this area mostly specialized to absorb water, So if you, so day to day life you have to defecation, day to day life, right. We have to go toilets. So the washroom, you know that we have to go washroom in time. We have to go washroom. Why? If we miss to go to defecation, the food, the remain part will stay in the rectum. Here day to day life it have to remove, say 2 days, it can be there, 3 days it can be there. So what happened? The solidic formation occur. Therefore other particles, right, the continuity of defecation, removal of these matters is going to block by this area. But when we eat more cellulose with sufficient water, that is most helpful to avoid constipation, right? Now can go to the notes, right? The main function to the large intestine is absorb water and matter received from the ileum. They have the ileum in large intestine. Therefore, the making into the semi-solid, the matter entered into large intestine is known as fecal matter. We in day-to-day life we call toilets, this one. Fecal matters is yellow in color due to the bile pigments in it. We already studied. Bile coming from bile duct, bile, it is attached with the liver. Undigested food, yes, possible. Microorganism, yeah, when we eat, the microorganism also, right, microorganism also possible to have that, right. So the microorganism, our intestine or the digestion system also having many microorganisms. Then epithelial cells, we already studied what is in the digestional tract. In the digestional tract we have find out the epithelium layers. Epithelium mean we already studied the tissues, right? The surface have covered by the cell layer, that is epithelium. So when food moving through the digestional system, what happened? This part also, the epithelium, the small amount of epithelium cell also can move. Therefore, the epithelium cells and mucose mean, you know, the like a mucose as like lubricant oil like that, right? You know, it can make some clay formation of that food, then present in the fecal matter. So when large intestine fills with fecal matter, it pass out from the rectum, right? It pass out from the rectum, right? So now we are going to study the next portion, the disease and disorders associated with digestive systems, right? So we must know the disease of digestive systems. Possible we have to discuss about it, because the outside food, because our environment, there are three kind of organisms we have find out. What are they? Plants, animal and microorganisms. The microorganisms can enter into through the mouth cavity by getting food, because we are getting food from our environment. Sometimes we sterilized food, that means without microorganism. Sometimes we eat with microorganism. Anyway, the microorganisms can make some advantage activities. That means sometimes, you know, the most of the microorganisms which are help us. Examples you can remember when we are studying in grade 10 or 9, yogurt production, some kind of bacteria, right? Lactobacillus, so that kind of bacteria is very important. You know, vinegar, some kind of bacteria, acetofactor. And you know, nitrogen fixation, the atmospheric nitrogen can converted as fertilizer in the leguminous plant. So that is help of microorganism, but some kind of microorganism cause diseases. Sometimes it's very harmful, right? Therefore, we are going to discuss the diseases of digestion systems. Here they explain that the changes of getting infections to the digestional tract as the materials entered into it from outside frequently. Therefore, digestive tract catch many diseases and disorders. Engage in the assignment. So this is assignment, we don't worry about it, right? So this is you can do that in classroom activities. Okay, gastritis, right? Gastritis. Here, gastritis. We will going to discuss about it, because gastritis sometime in our society we call ulcer, but actually the meaning of ulcer is wound. But in day to day life we talk about that ulcer, because that wound can made by some secretion in our digestional system. Especially we can say that hydrochloric acid, it is secreting or producing in the stomach. Hydrochloric acid, we already studied most of the acids are sour taste, vinegar sour taste, right? Some kind of tamarindus sour taste, orange some kind of earlier stage sour taste. So you can identify vitamin C, that is sour taste, ascorbic acids. Therefore this hydrochloric acid also sour taste. Sometimes when we miss to eat food in time, the stomach is secreting, producing hydrochloric acids, but we miss to eat food in time. Therefore that can spread to reach here, feel sour taste. Sometime that time we feel sour taste due to the hydrochloric acid. But sufficient, we need to eat food in time. If we miss to eat food in time, what happened? We already studied feeling hungry. What is feeling hungry? That means the digestion system, that stomach is going to contract and relax, waiting for food. Automatically it is happen. You can't feel that, because that is controlled by the special nervous system, sympathetic nervous system, right? That parasympathetic we will study later. That construction and removing or lose the stomach, that time the functions, the secretions also there, acids. But acids may cause the damage of the epithelial cells and the muscles area. So regularly if we don't eat food in time, what happened? The acid is going to damage, not digest. Acid is going to damage the surface of the stomach, so may cause sometime that wound. How? The acid can make damage, right? So therefore possible to have wound, that is called gastritis. Here we will discuss about it. Now the screen, right? Gastric inflammation of inner lining of mucosa, that means that gastric, the stomach and the mucous layer, right? That mucous layer is here, mucous layer, because the mucous layer mainly help to prevent from the hydrochloric acid, because it is not allowed to touch the muscles, because our muscles, the thickest muscles already made by the right? The all thickest muscles here we are the stomach. When you compare with other part of the digestional system, the stomach muscles are very thicker than others. The reason here very dangerous, concentrated hydrochloric acids producing here. Therefore, we need to here the HCl acids, HCl, hydrochloric acid, secreting here. The mucosa mean the light green color I have mentioned here, mucosa of stomach is known as here mucose. The inflammation of inner linear of mucosa of stomach is known as gastritis, right? Inflammation under sometimes the wound, sometimes the scratching or something. It is a common disease among people. Why? The people who eat food in time, they may have this disease, generally known as acidity. You know, sometime the people in day-to-day life, they are talking, I feel burning into the esophagus, right, chest. The burning of chest they feel due to this condition. What is the acidic condition? Now the screen, right, when the regulations of acids to mouth, burning feel and pain stomach. When the condition becomes worse, ulcer appear in the stomach and duodenal wall mean here. Duodenal wall, it can, you know that the acid can move up and down. Acid can move here, this part and that part. So therefore the duodenum also, duodenal wall mean here. So bleeding can take place. Sometimes you know that, sometimes you can understand what is internal bleeding. Very, very dangerous condition, because anyone can't see that, right? Internal bleedings, you know, when sometimes scratch with the wall, right, there was bleeding is possible. When cut sometime, bleeding is possible, but you can observe, you can care of it. But actually into the digestional system, if there are any bleeding incident, you can't feel. Can you shake your stomach now? Try. Can you shake your intestine? Try. Can't. It is not in your control. Actually, what happened? The digestional system, into the digestional system, if there are any incident like bleeding, what happened? Anybody can't feel. But very, very dangerous condition. Internal bleeding. Your hemoglobin is going to remove from the blood, but your blood, very, very important essential substance, the hemoglobin, to absorb oxygen and right for the producing energy, but indirectly silent killer, the gastric wound, that automatically it is remove the blood from your body, and it can be digested in your body, but your amount of hemoglobin is going to reduce. That is the reason, right? This is very, very important disease, right? You have to care of it. Okay. The reason for the disorder follows skipping the meals. Yes, skipping the meals mean you miss to take in time. Sometime if you miss to take your breakfast, if you miss to take your lunch or dinner in time, that is possible. Because we already addited to, right, we already addited to what? We already addited to eat in time. Right, our body already trained to that. What is? Yeah, morning, breakfast, then lunch and dinner, already edited. So if you miss to eat food in time, that secretion is possible. Small amount of secretion is possible because we already drained. Therefore, that substances is a acidic substances, right? That acidic substances can cause some wound, gastrics. Okay. Consumption of, right? Consumption of acidic and spicy food. Yes, spicy food also very dangerous one. Spicy food, right? Try to avoid like chilies, most chilies or sometimes that is cause they increase the gastritis. So if anyone feel gastritic disease, so they have to reduce the spicy food, right? Excessive smoking and alcohol consumption, very important, because smoking, sometimes you may ask how it is the smoking, when someone smoking, how it is affect, when someone take alcohol, how it is affect. Actually, when you eat, so when you take alcohol or smoking, when you take smoking or alcohol, actually the removing of hemoglobin or bleeding condition is going to increase. And mental stress also possible to gastric one. Sometimes someone if they have a mental stressness, it is possible to gastric. Very important. Stress management, when you study the stress management and everything, that time you can study, that is mental stress is possible to have constipation. Okay, the last one we don't have a sufficient time, right? Then the disease disorder with digestive system, we studied the gastric one. And constipation. Constipations we already discussed about it. What is the difficult and hardening the materials constipations? Feces remain in the large intestine of longer period in time absorption. Water takes place excessively, therefore the condition may occur. Reason for the constipations, right? Consumption of food with lower dietary fiber, not taking required volume water, postponing the defecation. So we have to go in time to the toilets, right, the washroom for defecation. Defecations mean we have to go to the washroom. Not taking required volume water, that also going to have some solid condition, right? Solid condition. So if we don't take sufficient water, what happened? It's going to turn as the solid condition, that is going to give us constipation. Okay, we will move to the last one. Typhoid. Typhoid caused by bacterium, that is pathogen, that's bacterium, and the pathogen is transmitted through the food and water, right? The bacterium can enter into the body through the mouth while swimming, bathing and contaminated water. It may enter into the body through the fecal matter. The patient consumptions of contained food and flies can arms, legs and headache. So here these are the symptoms, right? Pain in arms and legs, right? Headache, fever are mainly symptoms. It is disease which gradually becomes worse. At initial stage, constipations can occur. Tongue is covered by plaque. After some time, stomach ache and diarrhea can occur. Ulcer can from the small intestine and cause bleeding. Therefore, blood is released with fecal matter. Due to the ulcer, the wall can damage. Disease can be identified as blood test or tools. Typhoid can be prevented. This one. Typhoid fever, right? That is a bacterial infections, right? Mostly when we eat some unhygienic food from the some kind of hotels or some street food, that time through the food or swimming pool, right, the bacteria can enter into our body. Then the initial stage fever, headache and arms and leg pain is there. So suddenly the constipation, then it's cure. Anyway, that also the disease of typhoid. Then the typhoid vaccines available. We can take the vaccine initially to avoid this disease. Okay, the last one, diarrhea. diarrhea, diarrhea also the viral and bacterial infection. You know, sometime we may heard that COVID-19, that time also the symptom, kind of symptom diarrhea is possible, right? Anyway, the bacterial infection or viral infection, the diarrhea possible. But typhoid also sometimes make damage, internal bleeding, they damage the intestine and can remove the blood with stools, fecal matters. The fecal matters have sometime can identify some blood also can excrete as removal from the stools. So here diarrhea also same thing, removal, consumption of boiled drinks. So we can avoid consumption boiled drinking water, removal of bleeding flies or covers. So we should have to keep hygienic conditions to avoid avoid bacterial contamination, avoid consumption of food which sold open place, so is unhygienic condition, water seal latrine, so proper washing hands with soap. Yeah, sometimes you know the distance between the toilets and the well, if don't have sufficient length, right, if don't have sufficient length, what happened, sometimes it can contaminate through the water. Anyway, right, diarrhea is the very dangerous, that means the very important disease to know the knowledge, because if we lost more water, dehydration, it may cause death. So how can we avoid the digestional system diseases? To keep the hygienic condition, cool boil water, so we can the fly, sometime mostly we have to keep the food clean, not contaminated or contain the flies. Anyway, the time is not enough, therefore today we are discussing about what the diseases in the digestional system. Okay students, we will finish in the class, we will meet next class. Thank you very much.